in Philadelphia. And it's unfortunate, but it's the truth. And I think Philadelphia, given the hand they were dealt, up to this point was having a pretty good regular season, right? Especially after the way the playoffs ended last year in such disappointing fashion when Joel Embiid no-showed against Boston. But Nick Nurse is one of the best coaches in the game, and that was a great hire. Tyrese Maxey, all-star, has had a really good season. But Joel Embiid, he's just injury-prone. He can't stay healthy. And that's something unfortunate, but the sooner the Sixers realize it, the better. And even with Embiid healthy, like, I don't think this team was winning a title. I don't think they were good enough. And Daryl Morey, man, NBA Mike McCarthy, like, what has this guy done as a GM? What has he won? Nothing. I think he's one of the most overrated executives in all sports. I think it's a clear representative of him that, like, you can't build a team where if your star player gets hurt, like, you're screwed. Like, I watched a little bit of that game against Dallas last night, and they had no shot. They were cooked. And even if Embiid is back or not, like, I think they should just shut him down for the rest of the season, honestly. Because even with him back, they're not winning a championship. There's no move at the deadline they can make to put them over the top. And I just think the Sixers are going to have a lot of questions to answer going forward. I would say trade him, but his value's shot. Like, no team is going to give you the value you want for a guy that's injured. It's unfortunate, but the truth. I think the 76ers have a lot of soul searching to do, and they will not, unfortunately, win a title with Joel Embiid.
All right, Zachary, we are back here on the show, and it's time to move on to the next topic that we have right now. Going into the NBA, the trade deadline, passed us a couple days ago. Obviously, teams are, trying to gel right before this play-in playoff, push that we got going on in the future in a couple months. All-Star Weekend is upon us. What's going down right now in the NBA. We're about to get in our NBA flow. Zach, I'm going to pass it to you to kick us off right now. Which team helped or hurt themselves the most after the NBA trade deadline?
Yeah, well, so I have one team I'll talk about in each category, but I'll start with the team I thought that helped themselves the most. And I'm going to go with the Dallas Mavericks. And they made some under-the-radar moves, right? I don't think they really made a move that everyone's going to point to and say, wow, like they got this star player that's all of a sudden going to put them over the top and change everything. But I really like what the Mavericks did. And more importantly, I kind of like what they didn't do. I don't know if everyone heard about this, but there have been reports going around that they were this close to making a deal with Washington, trading for Kyle Kuzma. And I don't think that would have been a move that necessarily would have put them over the top. I don't think that's a move that changes anything about this team or their ceiling. I'm not the biggest Kyle Kuzma fan. I know that he played a role for the Lakers when they won the championship in the bubble, but I don't think that pairing him with Luka Doncic and Kyrie Irving was going to be the move that put them over the top or a move that really would have made them much better. But I do like a lot what this team did. They brought in PJ Washington from the Hornets, and they brought in Daniel Gafford from the Wizards, the player that's right now leading the NBA in field goal percentage. And all they really had to give up was Seth Curry. And they gave up one other guy here. Oh, Rashawn Holmes was the other one. Oh, and Grant Williams. They got off that contract. And that's the win in itself. I don't know how I forgot that. That was the big win in itself, because that was a move that clearly didn't work. I thought getting rid of Grant Williams for PJ Washington, great move. And my thing with Dallas is, like, I still have some questions about them in terms of, like, what they're going to be able to do in the playoffs, right? I don't trust Jason Kidd as a coach. I don't think he really gives your team any advantage. Kyrie Irving, he, as great of a talent as he is, you still have your questions with him. Hopefully he's able to stay healthy. Hopefully he's able to stay on the court, but he hasn't won a lot without LeBron James. But one thing I do know about the Dallas Mavericks, and I'm going to say this, and this might come off as a hot take, but I'll say it anyway. There will not be a series the Mavericks play in against anyone in the Western Conference, including the defending champion Denver Nuggets, that they don't have the best player. Luka Doncic is the best playoff player in the NBA. You look at his numbers, he's top 5 in the history of the NBA in points per game in the playoffs. And I just think that Washington and Gafford were two perfect fits for this team. You get Luka, a lob threat, and Gafford. PJ Washington is skilled. I think he's a good 3rd, 4th option for them. I think the Mavericks are a team I'm keeping my eye out on, and they were my big winner of the trade deadline.
Absolutely. I got some of these trades pulled up right here. So I'm actually going through some of these trades in my head right now. But for me, for starters, I just want to just broad here before I narrow it down. There's not a deal that I look at it and be like, oh, that team was going to win a championship, right? We don't have the Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving trade that happened last year, and even in those type of trades, it doesn't guarantee you a championship anyway. Clearly, with the Suns who got knocked out the second round, clearly with the Mavericks who didn't even make the play-in game, right? So clearly, those are not everything. So what I'm looking for in this type of question, when you talk about which team helped themselves the most, it's about, okay, number one, they fill the void that could get them closer to an NBA Finals. That's number one. Or maybe value. Maybe they got somebody off of value that could help them, gear up for a playoff run. Maybe it's a value type deal, right? So there's a couple trades that come to mind before I actually get to the one that I'm going to go with, right? Gordon Hayward, I thought was a good pickup off the cheap. It's a low risk, type of deal for the OKC Thunder. We all know Josh Giddey is struggling with his jump shot right now. Matter of fact, as I pull up the numbers, he is 49 of 140, 35% on wide open shots. So clearly the defense is allowing him to shoot, and they delivered that. So you got a guy in Gordon Hayward that brings playoff experience. You got a lot of guys on this roster. It's a young team that really don't have that playoff experience. Gordon Hayward brings that to this team. So I like that move. I like Buddy Hield going to the 76ers. We played that clip, where Zach is writing the obituary on Joel Embiid. And maybe that is true, but I like the move. It gives them shooting, something that they needed with Joel Embiid there. And clearly they desperately need without Joel Embiid. And he has made an impact immediately since the trade, actually. I believe he scored 67 points in the 3 games since he's been a Sixers. So they beat the Cavaliers last night. Recently, that's a pretty hot team right now. So maybe they do have a heartbeat until Joel Embiid comes, which they could try to go and gear up for a playoff run. Now, the team that I'm going to go with, I'm going to go ahead. See that smile that just crossed my face? I'm going to go with my New York Knicks. I think us adding Bojan Bogdanović and Alec Burks is the deal that is going to help us the most out of any team in the NBA as far as adding depth to go on a deep, and I expect a deep playoff run. Matter of fact, y'all, I'm not really about the hot takes right now, but honestly, anything less than the Eastern Conference Final is an abomination. Okay, we should be able to go to the Eastern Conference Final. I think we have that upside. We don't have the upfront talent like a Milwaukee, like a Boston, but our roster depth-wise, we have that. There's something that Boston lacks, okay, which is depth. There's something that Milwaukee lacks, which is defense. We got those. Okay, we got that. And I think, Zach, you made a very good point last week when you talk about the Knicks and how we prioritize the NBA regular season in an era in which the NBA don't prioritize the regular season, but also we prioritize defense first under Tom Thibodeau in an era where defense is secondary and everybody takes pride in scoring the basketball and putting up 100 points. Okay, we love to play defense. We love to take the regular season seriously, and we play hard. And I think that has to be rewarded, right? You can't be like Miami that don't give a F about the regular season and then go on this run again. Like, no, taking the regular season seriously has to matter. And I think when you talk about the additions and why it helped us out is Bojan Bogdanović is a stretch 4. Clearly, he's averaging 20 points per game, and he gives us that shooting that we need around guys like Jalen Brunson. And until Randall returns, that's an even bigger necessity. When you talk about Alec Burks, we talking about a guy who already was on this team. It's a Tom Thibodeau guy, and he could kind of fill that IQ role. Yes, it's still not there, but if there's anybody on our bench currently that could fulfill that role, it will be him out of everybody we have. When you talk about OG Anunoby, you got to add this. He wasn't a trade deadline acquisition, but he was traded for before the deadline. Clearly, we know his impact on our roster. He's a more fit, with Jalen Brunson and Julius Randle because he doesn't need the basketball. He's a great cutter. Okay, he could spot up and shoot, right? He could shoot the 3 ball. He could guard 1 through 4. He's going to be our most impactful player on our whole entire roster come playoff with his ability to guard 1 through 4, right? So I think the Knicks definitely made moves in the short term. We prioritize the short term. which I like that we doing, because it's not all about putting our chips to the table and going for that big star. It's about, yo, look in the East right now. Look at the rest of the conference. We could do this thing. We could make a push. And I think we did that. That's why the Knicks are my favorite right now. Yeah, Zach, I pass it back to you for the team that hurt themselves the most.
Before we do, I'll respond to that. And if you want, you could respond to mine. I think it's so crazy. And I brought this up last week too. Like, I never thought it would get to a point where the Knicks are the most well-run team in New York in any sport, like baseball, football, hockey, basketball. They're right now at the top of the list. And again, I've given Leon Rose a lot of heat in the past for refusing to speak to the media. Like, I still don't know why he is just underground and has no interest in ever doing that. But there's no doubt this guy knows what he's doing. He has a plan. And in 3 of the last 4 regular seasons, he's made moves that have really helped this team. You know, bringing in Derrick Rose, bringing in Josh Hart last year, the moves he made earlier this year with Anunoby, and now Burks and Bogdanović. The Knicks have depth. They play defense. You know, that was a tough game last night. The rest didn't really help our cause, but they're playing great basketball. And I'm looking forward to seeing what this team could do in the playoffs too, because a lot of what you said I agree with. Like, there isn't, even Boston, there aren't really a lot of teams in the Eastern Conference right now that I wouldn't feel confident in the Knicks beating. And I think last year, although the Knicks fell just short, that experience of losing to Miami in a hard-fought 6-game series, you know, what they did to Cleveland, that experience is going to come in handy. And, you know, I don't trust Milwaukee. With Embiid or not, you can't trust Philly. Cleveland, they've been on a great run. They've been playing great basketball. You can't trust them. Boston would be the one team, but they have to show they have so much to prove, just as much as the Knicks have to prove. You know, I still not going to believe it with them until I really see it. So a Knicks Celtics playoff series is something that I would love to see. But yeah, man, you know, there's no reason why Knicks fans shouldn't be really excited. And I think Leon Rose and this regime, they deserve a lot of credit. And it really started with bringing in Jalen Brunson. I think that could be a move we look back on as, you know, not only one of the best moves in the history of the Knicks franchise, but really just a turning point overall in the trajectory of this team as well.
And I'm not even trying to be a homer. Okay, I'm not. It's not The Simpsons. Okay, but I do feel that we definitely raised our ceiling with these moves. When you add all these moves that we made pre-deadline, it raised our ceilings. Now, I understand that we are a laughing stock in the NBA. We just the go-to meme on social media, but if you haven't been watching us play, it's indicative if you still feel that way. If you still think that we are a meme. No, we're not a meme. We're a team. And I think we have a deep team. Another thing, too, when we lost on Mitchell Robinson, one of the things that I thought we were losing, obviously, was rim protection. But it wasn't only rim protection. It was the fact that this is one of the best rebounders in the game. But even without him, okay, we got a lot of guys with heart. Yes, pun intended. Hartenstein, who's grabbing rebounds, okay? Josh Hart, who's one of the best rebounding wings in the NBA. So we hustle, we get those rebounds, and we're only going to get him back too.
How many rebounds did he have last night? Like 16 or 17? It was crazy.
That's what I'm saying. We get rebounds, and then we're going to get Mitchell Robinson back eventually. So we play with heart. You know, we crash the boards. We do what we got to do. And we have our star in Jalen Brunson, and Julius Randle is a solid number 2 when he comes back. I don't know about playoffs, but maybe he could change that narrative this year. And we are deep. And that's the most important thing. You need your role players, okay? A lot of people get caught up with the Dame and the Giannis and the, Tatum, but you need your role players, okay, to balance out the roster. When these guys are on the bench in the playoffs and it's all about runs, that's how you win NBA games. It's basically about runs. You need those role players that's going to be able to be complement to those stars and hold the fork down until the stars say, okay, it's the fourth quarter. Let me take us to this championship. And we have, that core. Okay, and we have a guy that we trust as a leader in Jalen Brunson. I love where we're going, and I think we won the trade deadline.
What do you think of Dallas? You agree with me?
Yeah, with Dallas, what you said about Dallas about Luka being the best player on the floor, that's what you mean?
Yeah, I just think no matter who they play in the Western Conference playoffs, there won't be a player I trust more to get the job done than him. And I'm going to pull up his playoff numbers right now, but they're absurd. He's led a team by himself to the Western Conference Finals, and now he has Kyrie with him. He has PJ Washington, who's good, and Dan Gafford, man, leading the NBA right now in field goal percentage. I thought that was a perfect ad. And I just think this team, they're going to be out for vengeance. Like, after missing the play-in completely last year, I think they're going to be out for blood. And when you look at Luka, in the playoffs, listen to these numbers in his career. He's averaging 34.3 points per game, 8.8 rebounds, 9.6 assists. Ridiculous. And it doesn't matter. They could be playing Denver. They could be playing the Lakers, the Clippers, Phoenix, Golden State. Now, it doesn't matter. Luka Doncic will be the best player on the floor, and no matter who he plays in the Western Conference Finals, in the Western Conference playoffs. And I think their deadline made their team much better.
I mean, he did bring them to the Western Conference Finals a couple years ago. Luka did. So, it's hard for me to disagree with the sentiment of them not having a chance to win with Luka on the floor. They do. He's one of the best players, if not the best player in the NBA. But I do think for me, the most important player in the Western Conference is Kawhi Leonard. I think when he's on the floor, he raises the ceiling with the Clippers. Health has been an issue with them, but I think when Kawhi Leonard is on the floor, I thought they had an opportunity to win the playoffs, not win the playoffs, but win the series against the Suns last year, even without PG. Okay, that's Kawhi Leonard, his impact on both ends of the floor. I think he's the most important player. So I like the Clippers, but I do like your take about the Mavericks. I do think they got better, and I do think they arguably may have the best player in basketball, at least top 3 in Luka Doncic.
Go ahead, Zach. I'll say quickly. So here's the thing, right? I'm a big fan of this team. If you guys remember, I picked this team to come out of the Western Conference before the season even started. I did watch a little bit of them last night against the Timberwolves, though, and the only concern I have is they don't have a ton of size. And if you put them up against a team that's good on the glass, that could, foul out a Zubac, could foul out a Plumlee, that's my only concern with them. Tyronn Lue, he's a mastermind. He's a tactician. He's been playing like a lot of smaller lineups, which have worked against some opponents, but that lack of depth is the only thing that's scaring me a little bit, especially if you're playing, a team like Denver with Jokic. So I'm a big fan of the Clippers. Of course, the health with those guys are always a big question as well, but that's what I'm looking forward.
Health is the same thing with Kyrie Irving as your Robin. Kyrie Irving, hasn't been healthy over the last couple of years. His career has kind of like sputtered outside of LeBron James. You harped on it, so clearly they're going to need that Robin, to help Luka Doncic out with the scoring responsibility. So Kyrie Irving has to be available for them to have a shot to go on a run as well. All right, Zach, I'll pass it back to you for the loser.
Yeah, this one was pretty easy for me, Will, and you hit on one team in town to start with, the team that helped themselves the most. I'll go with the other team in town which hurt themselves the most. I'm going to go with the Brooklyn Nets, man. I just don't really know what this team's plan is. And it's pretty crazy to me that Sean Marks has been their GM since 2016. That's almost 10 years now. And he's won one playoff series during his time in Brooklyn. And I understand that the Kevin Durant, Kyrie Irving, James Harden era didn't end like we all thought it would. But I don't think Brooklyn has really done anything to help themselves since then. And the two moves I'm looking at is like Dorian Finney-Smith. That's a guy that a lot of contenders, I think, could have used, that they could have really wanted. And the rumor was like his market was 2 or 3 first-round picks, and they just didn't do anything with him. They kept him. I don't know why they did that. I would have moved on from him, gained draft picks for the future, especially when you don't have those picks, right, after the Harden trade with Houston. And even Mikal Bridges, man, like he's a really good player. Don't get me wrong. But I feel like as more time goes on, we're kind of realizing that he isn't really a viable number one option on a team that's trying to win a championship. And I still think his value, like in this trade market and like where we are right now, he probably would have been the guy that was the most valuable that would have gotten moved. You could have gotten a couple first round picks back for him. Yeah. They refused to move him. I just don't really know what the Brooklyn Nets plan is right now. I don't really know what their future is right now. And I think this is a team, honestly, that needs to be blown up. They got rid of Spencer Dinwiddie, which is fine. Like that was a move that had to happen. They got rid of Royce O'Neal, got a little bit back for him. But I'm just so underwhelmed by this team. Like they're just the definition of mid. I don't really know what they're doing. I think they hurt themselves the most at the deadline.
It's funny, man. You know, that saying goes, a man without a plan plans to fail. And I don't know what the plan is with Sean Marks in that unit over there in Brooklyn, to be honest with you. And to be honest with you, I would rather, despite us losing, opportunities to bring in Kevin Durant and Kyrie Irving back then when they were free agents, I would rather where we are right now than that short-term excitement that they had thinking they were going to do something back then. Like, I'm fine with where we are in New York. The Nets, I don't know what they're doing. I agree. They should have traded Mikal Bridges. Clearly that's the most tradable asset on that basketball team, and there were teams that offered multiple firsts for Mikal Bridges, and there were teams that offered a couple firsts for Dorian Finney-Smith. You know, to
Claxton
them,
too. I
Mikal
forgot
Bridges
to
and
mention him,
Jordan.
right? Claxton
Is
too.
another tradable asset as well.
He's a free
they got
agent every
tradable
year.
assets there.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. I don't know, bro. I don't understand what Brooklyn trying to do. They have a history of getting fleeced. They should be the laughing stock, not the Knicks. But here we are with them. But I'm going to go with another loser. And I'm not even sure if it's a team more so than it is two players. So maybe we could go with the players or the team that these players play for. But I'm going to combine Steph and LeBron. So translation, the Lakers and the Warriors, right? And the reason why, I think when you talk about LeBron James and Steph Curry in particular individually, singling them out, right? They are two guys that are guys that have championships, right? And they want to continue to accumulate championships until they turn to ash, right? Till their careers turn to ash, right? And I think when you talk about the Warriors starting off with them not making a move, trusting that core of Draymond Green, Klay Thompson, and Steph, they have shown us that they're going to live and die by that core. That core is what got them there to win and beat this type of dynasty in the first place before. And they feel it's what's going to bring them back to that very point, which I just don't agree with. Now, I do like what I'm seeing from Jonathan Kuminga. I hinted at it on the last show that we did. I think he's shown that he could be a franchise cornerstone with his evolution, in his game. But also, maybe Klay Thompson, changes his role to a Ray Allen type role, and maybe he's content with that. But look, they have won, I believe, 5 straight games, right? So I understand a lot of people's like, Lil, why you gonna go there? They won 5 straight games. Steph Curry in that Suns game reminded me why they're gonna have a chance to win. Okay, even if their roster, it is what it is, they lack size and all that, they're gonna have a chance to win with Steph Curry. That's what that game on Saturday night reminded me of when he hit that buzzer. They're gonna have a chance to win pretty much any game they play because they have that man. But you gotta help that man. And I think this loyalty to the big three is what's going to cost them. Now, you could say, Lil, what move could they make? I mean, there's other guys they could have potentially added to this roster, but I just think staying pat and trusting the big three. Draymond Green is a little bit unreliable when he gets into that mode where he gets suspended. Klay Thompson is clearly unreliable. He was the main reason why they lost Game 6. Andrew Wiggins is shot. That was their most important player on that championship run a couple years ago. As far as the Lakers is concerned, I understand they added on Spencer Dinwiddie, but you hear Darvin Ham talking about having 3 guards on the floor at once. They tried that experiment last year; it did not work. And when you talk about a guy who's highly inefficient on offense, when you talk about a guy who plays no defense, I'm talking about Spencer Dinwiddie here. I'm not sure this addition. Yes, it gives you depth, but it doesn't improve your overall, trajectory as a basketball team. And clearly, this is a team that won the bubble. They won the bubble, but they won the in-season tournament. Okay, they made the Western Conference Finals last year. Anything other than bringing home a championship is going to be a disappointment, especially for a guy like LeBron James, who's clearly prioritizing championships as he builds his equity into closing that gap in that distance with Michael Jordan for being the greatest basketball player of all time. So when you talk about these two guys, Steph, LeBron in particular, I would say the Lakers and the Warriors, because I know that their goal is to continue to accumulate championships. And I'm not sure they're in a position to do that.
Yeah, so it's interesting, especially with the Warriors too. Like, they've actually been playing much better, over the course of the last week.
The Lakers 4 out of 5. So I understand the short term, but long term, they're not worried about minor victory laps. They're trying to win that championship, truth be told. All right, Zach, any last words before we head to our take for 99?
I'm trying to think. Overall, I agree. It was a pretty underwhelming deadline. I would have liked to see Murray get moved. The Lakers were definitely a fit, possibly. The Pelicans were another one. I think that team is a point guard away. I like some of their pieces, but they're just missing something. You mentioned Gordon Hayward. I thought that was a good move for Oklahoma City. Yeah, man, a pretty underwhelming deadline overall, but I think there were a couple other moves. Oh, the other thing I wanted to mention too, I actually thought the Celtics made a very good move adding Xavier Tillman. I think that's a guy to come off the bench. They needed a backup big behind Porzingis. He's a guy that will excel in that role, coming off the bench as a big, very selfless player. I think he's going to help them in the playoffs. Hopefully Porzingis could stay healthy. That's the one guy you need. But I thought that was a nice depth add for Boston that we didn't mention.
Yeah, definitely. There was some depth adds that I thought was good that helped the team. It may not have drastically improved their outlook, but when you talk about teams like Boston, all they need is little moves to really give them depth and give them obviously depth behind the big to really try to go on that run. And the same thing with the Knicks. All we needed to do was to add some, depth pieces that could help us, win a championship. So I think every team pretty much got their foundation, and we'll see who wins and who obviously goes on that run.
Please like and subscribe for all the up-to-date content. You've been slinging shows left and right, slinging content left and right. Please don't miss anything. If you do, like, subscribe, leave a comment, leave a question, something you may want to answer, something you may have. All ideas are great ideas. Nothing's a dumb question.